Drum rolls. Here we go again. Welcome once again. Welcome to the Dean channel, the Dean O'Clock. Apologies, first of all, it's been a minute since I actually a clip fell off the track. A couple of reasons, but I'll get into details about it. But now I'm staying consistent. I was actually the reason I fell off was because I was as well doing a bit of research on how to, get around to record the reaction videos, get the softwares, everything aligned, the topics, the videos I want to go through with you guys. Like I said, we wanna create a community of people who are curious about what goes on that other side of the religious realm, the religious discussions, all inclusive. Uh, part of the listing I came across this clip. It's actually a debate. It's a long format debate with around like 6, 7 clips from the Oxford Union. Shout out to the Oxford Union. There's a number I've listened to like maybe 2, 3 clips, but the most fascinating I've listened to actually is the one from Mehdi Hassan. He actually is very engaging in the crowd and he tackles. I think he goes last. Like we say, the best always goes last. So there's a number of curveballs thrown in here and there. He actually addresses them in a very light-hearted manner. So I wanna go through first the first clips to give you a bit of context in terms of what he'll mention at the end. But I wanna see on every clip we drop. Engage in the comment section. I'll be reading the comments, seeing what's good, how you feel about it, how we can make the channel better. Enough ado, let's go.
This debate does not and should not take place in a vacuum. It takes place in the real world. And yesterday, that world was profoundly shaken by a reprehensible act of violence in Woolwich, which saw the soldier Lee Rigby brutally murdered by 2 assailants.
That's sad.
In the immediate aftermath of that attack, 2 men claimed that they had instigated that attack and claimed that their justification for doing that attack was Allah. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you will all agree this was a despicable act and would wish to extend your...
With the topic at hand, they speak of is Islam is a peaceful religion. So there are those who are proposing, there are those who are opposing. We can already tell Matthew is on the opposing side.
Sympathies and wishes to the family of Mr. Rigby at this time. But more than that, I am sure that these are sentiments which are shared by the overwhelming majority of Muslims both in Britain and around the world. Not only would they have shared the same revulsion at an act of brutality against our fellow man that we all do, but moreover, they would have felt the anger that their God and their religion was falsely and illegitimately invoked as justification for that heinous crime, without any legitimacy in either the Quran or any Islamic precept and any legitimate reading of those whatsoever. Moreover, they would have felt a profound sense of fear as the clouds of vitriol and misinformation descended once again on all Muslims, as they do in the aftermath of any attack which is perpetrated by someone purporting to act in the name of Islam. Within minutes of the attack, before any of the facts had been substantiated, Muslims was trending on Twitter, with literally thousands of tweets exhorting the expulsion and even extermination of Muslims from the United Kingdom.
On such matters, it's usually about agendas. People do have agendas, and at times they find reasons and excuses to back up their agendas.
Last night, the EDL took to the streets in order to reclaim them from Islamism, and in doing so, attempted to torch mosques across the country. Popular media, newspapers and TV channels, before rushing to characterize these men as fanatics or maniacs, sought to characterize them as Muslims. Ladies and gentlemen, the victims of any terror attack are not confined to those who are directly and physically affected by it. The victims of a terror attack are all those who feel insecure, victimized, and fearful as a result of that attack. Ladies and gentlemen, the British Muslim community were the victims too of yesterday's attack. That is the context in which tonight's debate occurs, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why it is more important than ever that you refuse to buy into the voices of fear and hate and confusion which seeks to cast the fundamentally peaceful religion of Islam as a violent one.
I think he's actually taking so far he's taking a neutral position, not opposing or proposing.
In the aftermath of such an attack, it is right and just and important that we refuse to allow a monopoly on the discourse surrounding Islam to be given to those voices of fear who either seek to cast it as something that it's not, or seek to use it to justify their own violence, seek to cast it as something that it's not, or seek to use it to justify their own violent and heinous aims. And to that end, I am delighted to introduce such an esteemed group of speakers to speak alongside me on this motion tonight. On the proposition, I'm joined by Adam Dean, an international public speaker and broadcaster who has been speaking and researching and working in the field of Islamic apologetics for almost a decade now. I'm also joined by Mehdi Hassan, who turned down an invitation to Question Time to be here tonight.
As you can tell, I'm already biased.
He's a former PPAist here at Oxford and now the political director of the UK Huffington Post. On the opposition, we are joined by Anne-Marie Waters, a journalist and member of the Labour Party who has campaigned against the imposition of Sharia law in Western democracies. We're also joined next to her by Daniel Johnson, who, like me, studied modern history, but unlike me, is now the editor of a right-wing journal. Finally, we are joined by Peter Atkins, a former professor of chemistry who is frequently, here at Oxford University, who has frequently provided a scientific critique of religion. And I'd like to say to everyone speaking in tonight's debate, and forgive me if I mispronounce, Assalamu alaikum, the universal Islamic greeting, may peace be upon you. Now,
That's what it means. I thought it was something like hello. It really means may peace be with you.
the duration of my speech, I'm going to do three things.
I know, I wasn't alone. Bet I wasn't alone.
First of all, I'm going to set out the parameters and the confines in which this debate should occur. Secondly, I'm going to give you a positive justification for the consideration of Islam as a religion of peace. And finally, I'm going to tell you what it would mean for you to vote in favour of the proposition tonight and why that's something that you should definitely do. So first of all, in terms of setting the parameters for this debate, because both Islam and both peace mean lots and lots of different things to lots and lots of different people. Even at this preliminary stage, I think that's why we should be very wary about refusing to allow Islam to be characterized as peaceful. Why we should be very wary about refusing to allow Islam to be characterized as peaceful and allowing a hegemony over what Islam can and cannot be to any group in society at all. When we're speaking about peace, we're broadly speaking about, I'd like to invoke a metaphor used by Martin Luther King, which was to say that peace is not just the absence of violence, but the presence of justice. Now,
Peace is not just the absence of violence, but the presence of justice. Oof. Bars.
in order to be able to cast Islam as not being a religion of peace and not conforming to those tenets, it's not just enough to cite individual actions or individual scripture. What opposition have to prove to you is that there is something fundamental to the character of Islam which prevents it from being cast as peaceful, and indeed that Islam has to be diametrically opposed to peace. It is not enough for them to cite the actions of individual extremists who invoke the name of religion for their own goals in all religions. We can point to the example of the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda who claim the name of Christianity.
Facts. We can mention on the Lord's Resistance Army. We can talk about Spanish Inquisition. We can talk about the Crusaders as well. Let's see if he does mention those as well.
For their atrocities and the actions of people like Baruch Goldstein who attacked the Cave of the Patriarchs in the 1990s in the name of Judaism. All around the world and in all religions, people often seek to
I don't know why she's putting up the long face,
illegitimately hijack
I'm waiting to see what she says. But they're also opposing too much.
the name of that faith for their own violent and maniacal ends. Ladies and gentlemen, the actions of those people tell us absolutely nothing whatsoever about the character of the religion they invoke and tell us everything about the individual and the individual alone. Moreover, it is not enough for them to cite individual pieces of scripture out of context which may lend themselves to warlike rhetoric within the Quran. First of all, such exhortations exist within any religious doctrine, but moreover, to do so ignores the contemporary context in which the Quran was dictated in a state of total war in the 7th century. Scriptural analysis is something that my colleague is going to talk about in more detail. Finally, though, what I'd like to say in terms of scriptural citations is that when we're dealing with a doctrine as diverse and as multifaceted as Islam, even if it can be proven that there exist elements of warlike rhetoric within Islam, even if we can say that in some ways Islam could be considered to have elements of violence, that is not enough. For what we are saying is it is a legitimate and intuitive reading of Islam for people to draw that of being a character of peace and for that to be the message that they on an individual take away from Islam. So in order for opposition to win this debate, they have to prove that Islam...
he's giving the opposition a blueprint on how to win the debate. That's humorous. He does mention on... There's a point he's made.
legitimate and intuitive
in terms of assumptions. I don't know if it was a book I read. There's a guy who mentions the reason why people, maybe it's a comedian. I think like it's a comedian, either Dave Chappelle. He mentions on the reason why we have, or Bill Barr. He mentions on the reason why we have so many. We have people who have stereotypes. It's because they've not gone outside their own, conclave or cocoon, their own cocoon of society, what they are used to, what they're engaged in, or they're, exposed to. So the moment you get to experience it as a whole, then there's a whole different understanding. You actually get to, internalize.
Reading of Islam for people to draw that of being a character of peace and for that to be the message that they on an individual take away from Islam. So in order for opposition to win this debate, they have to prove that Islam, taken in its totality, is so diametrically opposed to peace as to render it entirely illegitimate for us to cast it as a religion of peace. Now I realise that's a high bar, ladies and gentlemen, but I think when you're
that's a low blow.
attempting to tell a quarter of humanity what their religion cannot be and attempting to essentialize fundamentally negative and violent characteristics to those people, I'm quite comfortable with setting the bar damn high, ladies and gentlemen. In order for us to win this debate on proposition, all that we have to do is to prove to you that there is nothing inherent to Islam which prevents individuals from taking away a peaceful interpretation of that faith. That's not all we're going to do, though. I think we can go further than that, and what I'm going to do as I move on is give you a positive justification as to why casting Islam as a religion of peace is a widely held and intuitive reading of the doctrines and practices of Islam. So I think, first of all, when we address the Quran in its totality, we see that it has an overwhelmingly peaceful character, okay? First of all, the very ideal of Quranic society is Dar al-Salam, literally the house of peace. Moreover, one of the fundamental pillars of Islam is almsgiving, is charity, is fellowship with your fellow man, attempting to do good unto others as you would like to have it.
I believe it's one of the 5 pillars of the religion, charity.
Done to yourself. Muhammad, in his very last sermon, said, "Hurt no one so that no one may hurt you." And whilst they may give to you examples of instances in which there are elements of warlike rhetoric or violent rhetoric within the Quran, in the overwhelming majority of cases, those such scriptural instances are followed by exhortations which suggest that taking the peaceful option is always the preferable one and is always the one which is more in line with God's wishes. But moreover, I think that we can cast Islam as being a peaceful religion based on the change that it seeks to inspire on an individual level. Because that's what Islam attempts to do. It attempts to inspire a positive and a peaceful change in all of its followers. First of all, it suggests that the choice to engage in Islam and to become a Muslim has to be a free one and has to be devoid of compulsion. Secondly, for those individuals who do enter into the Islamic faith, there is a massive impetus on engaging in good deeds with your fellow man. But moreover, what I'd like to say in terms of casting Islam as a religion of peace is that we can also consider peace in terms of inner peace today, ladies and gentlemen. In a confusing world of consumerism and uncertainty, the absolute clarity and certainty that Islam gives to its followers that there is something worth striving for, that it is worth acting in a morally just way, and that there is something beyond this temporal and this material realm is something that allows people a great sense of inner peace. And that is something invaluable and something that we should not take away based on the arguments of...
It's impressive. I've I've come across the level of tranquility and peace the true practitioners of the religion uh, have in them. It's a bit different. It's a bit different. I won't lie. There's a study I've seen while I was scrolling through YouTube that mentions on a study was done and it shows that uh, among the religions practiced, the Muslims are the ones who actually have the most level of inner peace. Something in the line of Qadr. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly. Like the will of God, like this profound belief that whatever happens doesn't happen because we make it happen, but it happens because of the will of God. So either way, whether it's good or it's bad, it is what it is. It's still what like God has already planned out for you.
opposition. Now finally, I'd like to tell you what it would mean for you to vote with the proposition in tonight's debate. Because I told you at the start this debate doesn't occur in a vacuum. Now even if we were to ignore the horrific events of yesterday, in a post-9/11 landscape, what we have witnessed is a decade-long surge of violence, aggression, and human rights abuses directed at Muslims, which have been
Happens on a decade. How old is this video? It's supposed to be like 2 decades right now. 10 years ago. Damn, it's an old vid. Damn, it's been sadly the victimization of innocent Muslims from the whole deal of 9/11, which has been refuted on many channels. Now they're called conspiracy channels, but there's something Vusi says about uh, conspiracy theories. Those who believe, sadly, in society, those who believe that it's something in the line of those who believe that conspiracies are only conspiracies are actually part of the whole ideal. I'll try to find that clip.
justified by a sustained demonisation campaign. When the Western media and when mainstream media is looking for a voice of Islam, they do not seek out the moderate voices, they do not seek out the reasoned voices, they seek out angry men with hooks, ladies and gentlemen. They seek out people who are setting fire to effigies. There has been a deliberate distortion in the actions of the media in a post-9/11 and post-7/7 world, which has been internalised by many people in society. That's why in the aftermath of yesterday's attacks, Twitter went absolutely mental with people suggesting that we should kill all the Muslims. That's literally something that was retweeted thousands and thousands.
Yeah, Twitter has wild people. But killing all the Muslims, like he mentions earlier on in the debate, Muslims make a population of close to, is it 25%? The whole human race. 2 out of 2 billion. I think right now it stands at 2 billion Muslims. So imagine 2 out of 8 billion. That's a quarter. That's literally 25%. You can't smoke 25% of the population just because they have a different belief system.
Thousands of time. But what I'd like to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that in the coming days, that's the sort of rhetoric that's going to be predominating in the media. That's the sort of rhetoric that's going to be directed at each and every one of you. And if you vote with the opposition tonight, you're buying into that rhetoric. You are telling people who follow the Islamic faith, you are telling Muslims what their religion can and cannot be, and that it must not be peaceful and must be violent. That is something which essentializes, and that is something that marginalizes. When you walk out that door tonight, you've got a choice between love and hate, between embrace and rejection, between peace and conflict. I hope you make the right choice.
That's a nice piece he's done. Matthew Handley. I take it back. Actually, he's not neutral. He doesn't take a neutral position. He's actually on the proposition side of it. Uh, yeah, he's made a really good opening to the debate. Let's see what the others have in store for us. So down in the comment section, give your take. Give your take on some of the points he makes. What's your opinion about it? What you think about it? And also, don't forget, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell as well. All of them, they in one line, so it's follow through. See you in the next clip, though.